In the past month, the Lions had not faced true adversity until they headed into Houston last night to take on a young and exciting Texans team. With Jared Goff throwing 5 interceptions and Detroit facing a 16-point halftime deficit, it looked like the Lions were going to suffer their second loss of the season. Fortunately for Detroit fans, some defensive adjustments at halftime and the continued dominant play of the offensive line helped complete one of the grittiest comebacks in recent history. Let's discuss all that and more on this episode of Motor City Connected. So right away, I want to hop into what went well in this game offensively. It was definitely a struggle from start to finish. The offense just looked stagnant, complacent. It looked like Houston was selling out to the run, but also they were able to fit up the passing game exceptionally. I mean, Houston struggled in previous weeks this year covering the pass. And I think that they knew what the Lions wanted to do. The Lions wanted to run the ball to set up play action and get the ball down the field. And because the run game was pretty much non-existent through the first half for Detroit, Houston was very comfortable running their defensive sets, running man to man, and they dominated throughout the first half for sure. But in the second half, obviously, the offense started clicking. Ben Johnson was doing Ben Johnson things. Jared Goff started to turn the ball over less, and it ended up being a win, and a very gritty win at that. So just what went well, I think that the offensive line, despite not having Taylor Decker, was very solid. I mean, you still have a lot of talent, and you have guys that can fill in. I know Dan Skipper filled in, and he was effective. I think there was a couple snaps he got beat on, especially on Jared Goff's blind side, and there was definitely some reps he needs to work on. But for the most part, I felt like he did a good job filling in for Taylor Decker, and the offensive line as a whole was just very solid. You didn't allow a single sack. I know earlier on in the game, there was a lot of pressures on Jared Goff, no sacks, but they were getting to him, forcing air throws, forcing him to throw the ball into the dirt, and that was extremely effective for the Texans defense. Was just pressures, not even necessarily getting home, but getting those pressures on Jared Goff has been a common theme for most defenses this year. They're bringing a lot of pressure, especially up that middle, and it's definitely affecting Jared. But I think the offensive line did a good job of, I know I say this about our defense, bend don't break, but I think the offensive line kind of embodied that as well. Just maybe allowing a couple free rushers, but at the end of the day, when it really mattered, they kept Jared Goff clean in the pocket and let him make a throw. Um, Another thing I thought went well was second half run game. I know in the first game, or the first half, excuse me, the run game was just non-existent. Um, David Montgomery couldn't get anything going. We tried to switch it over to Jahmyr Gibbs, see if he could break one, and the Texans defense just did a really good job. They did a really good job all game. They had their defensive ends kind of lined out a little bit farther wide, and they came outside in instead of inside out. So then I know the commentators talked about it on the broadcast. They are defending the run while defending the pass at the same time. They're defending the run on the way to the quarterback. And I think that tripped up the offensive line and Goff, especially in that first half, which just allowed the Texans to get free rushers and force air passes, force Jared Goff to throw interceptions, and not allow Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery to beat them, which has been the case pretty much all season long. You look at the last loss the Lions had faced, it was the Buccaneers, and in that game, they as well did a really good job of stopping the run game and making Jared Goff uncomfortable. Um, I also think that the run game struggles when the other team has a really solid edge setting safety like a Brian Branch, or in the Bucks game, Jordan Whitehead for them was very effective. Against the Cardinals, Buda Baker was absolutely phenomenal for the Cardinals. And another player for the Texans that just gave the Lions fits was Jalen Petrie, kind of at that hybrid safety position. He was able to set the edge a ton and just make play after play. And I think that was definitely something that they made an adjustment on in the second half, allowed the run game to really get going. Jahmyr Gibbs ended with 19 carries, 71 yards, only a 3.7 average per carry, which I think is his lowest for the season. Definitely been his lowest in the past 6 weeks or so. And that was concerning. But in the second half, he was able to break out some longer runs that helped set up both Jake Bates' field goals and just give the offense some life. In that first half, it just seemed they were so stagnant, they were so complacent, and Gibbs was a non-factor in the first half, and Demont was a non-factor. But obviously, as you wear down a defense, eventually those are going to start to hit. And Gibbs did a great job following his blockers in the second half, finding holes, getting to the edge. He broke one for 20, another one for like 15, and he just was very, very solid, setting up this team to have success offensively when in the first half that was just not the case. Another thing that I thought went well, Sam Laporta had two massive plays over the top off of play action. We've seen last year he was so unbelievably effective in play action passing, and that's something that this team needed to get back to, and that's what they did last night. He had a touchdown on the first long pass from Jared Goff, and then later on in the game, I think he was tackled at the 1 yard line, but it was about a 40-yard play or 30-yard play or whatever it was. And it's good to see Laporta still a focal point of this offense because again, it makes defenses prepare for him. It makes defenses, they may spend a day less on film talking about Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs and Dave Montgomery and Khalif Raymond and the rest of this off and Jameson Williams because they have to focus on, Sam Laporta is still a really, really good tight end, and the Lions are using him more sparingly, but he's still somebody we got to pay attention to. So I'm just glad that Sam Laporta was able to get in the end zone and have an effective game nonetheless. What else went well? Dave Montgomery, he had a touchdown. I mean, he's just a touchdown machine. A struggle for sure, only 2.7 yards per carry, 12 carries, 32 yards, and a touchdown. The Texans' defense was more susceptible to outside runs and just more explosive plays, and that's what Jahmyr Gibbs is kind of turned into. And Dave Montgomery kind of got pushed out of the offense in the second half, but again, both these running backs, they don't care about the glory, about the stats. They want to win ball games, and I know David Montgomery was plenty happy seeing Jahmyr Gibbs get going and set up the offense to win the game. Another thing that I thought went well, Amon-Ra was, again, he's just such a consistent, solid piece in this offense. 6 catches, 60 yards, touchdown. The Texans, don't get me wrong, they did a great job of neutralizing him. Al Michaels on the broadcast said it probably 15 times when Amon-Ra is not a part of this offense. We're not nearly as effective. He's right. I mean, he has a point. When Amon-Ra St. Brown is not getting consistent touches and when he is not targeted, the defense we're giving the defense a break because of how just hard Amon-Ra is to guard because of his ability to play out of the slot, play outside. I mean, you saw it. He lined up as like a wing back early on in the game, and they shoveled it to him, and he took it for 20, 25 yards or whatever it was. I mean, he is just so unbelievably versatile as a wide receiver that if you can figure out ways to neutralize him and make Jared Goff go to his second and third reads, that's a successful outing for sure for any defense. So it was good to see him kind of get going in the second half. He had his touchdown. I think he has like 7 straight games with a touchdown, something ridiculous like that. And it's good to see him continue to be effective even when the defense is game planning towards shutting him down. Jameson Williams, coming off of his suspension, he's been out for 2 games. I thought he played exceptionally well. I believe he only had 3 targets on the day, and he caught all 3. One of them was bobbled, but one that I wanted to highlight was, I think it was like a 2nd and 6. Lions were desperately trying to get something going on offense. Jared Goff threw it into a really tight window. He had a guy in front of him and behind him, and he got absolutely crunched, but he held onto the ball, one of the best catches I've seen from him, the best catch I've seen from him so far in his career. And the jug machine is paying off. We know Amon-Ra St. Brown is a jug machine merchant, and I think Jameson Williams is starting to see how it's paying dividends for Amon-Ra. And I mean, he's so much more sure-handed than he was the past 2 years. So I'm glad to see that Jameson Williams is getting more comfortable being a versatile wide receiver instead of just being straight line speed guy, but somebody that can make a catch in traffic and hold on to the ball and still take a hit. Um, just it's nice to see the maturity and the growth, even especially coming off of a suspension. We know Jameson Williams is struggling, staying on the field and staying out of trouble, and it's nice to see that he can come back from a suspension and not take 2 or 3 games to get comfortable again, but can come in right away and be just an effective piece of this offense. And then what did not go well? I think that this is probably the worst offensive performance this team has had this year, and they still put up 26 points and won the game. So I don't want to dwell too much on it, but I wanted to touch on some things and some things that I noticed. Goff, obviously, 5 interceptions, probably the worst game of his career, and they still found a way to get it done. I felt like Goff was way too overzealous, especially in the second half. When we were only down, 10 points, it felt like he was just trying to force it. He wanted to go for that Hail Mary. He wanted to go for that game-breaking play that's just gonna wipe out any deficit they were facing just like that. And that's not how this offense operates. Uh, Especially on that ball he tried to fit into JMO when we were down 10, that was just easily intercepted. You got to just dump it off. Gibbs was wide open in the flat. Just take what you can get. Take the positive gain, and live to see another down, because that's been the blueprint and the identity of this team all year is we're not going to take the top off, but we're going to dink and dunk for 10, 15 plays. And when you're least expecting it, we're going to hit Jameson Williams on a deep ball, or we're going to find Sam Laporta on a play action pass down the center of the field. And it worked. It worked. Once we started to get back to our roots, you started to see the play action open up, and you started to see Amon-Ra be able to get open and Sam Laporta find open areas. And that's just who Jared Goff is as a quarterback. He's not going to win games with his arm, okay? But he can sure lose games because of it. And a couple of field goals and a missed field goal by the Texans. Who knows how this game goes? We don't know how this game goes. So I'm glad to see that Jared Goff was able to settle in, excuse me, despite throwing those 5 interceptions. But when you're playing against the Bills and the Niners, and when you see the Packers and the Vikings again, you're not going to be able to get away with throwing 5 interceptions. They will make you pay. So we got to see Goff be who you are, and don't try and be Josh Allen or Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes, but rather be Kirk Cousins, who is the best game manager outside of Goff in the NFL. And I truly think that Goff has the arm talent to be a top 10 quarterback in this league. But when your offense is so well balanced and it's built to beat teams in a multitude of different ways, I don't see a reason to try and force those tight throws and force the ball down the field when your defense is playing as well as it is. I don't want to pile too much on him. I want to give him his praise. He's a very smart quarterback, high football IQ. I don't see him having even half as bad a game the rest of the year, considering, again, how dynamic our playmakers are and how good Ben Johnson is at giving Goff easy throws and then letting that kind of open up as the game goes on. Um, he's still a great quarterback. The 5 interception game is not going to define who he is, but he just needs to be more detail oriented the rest of the season. And I think he will. I think he's going to go into the film session, and he's going to be the first one to say, yeah, no, that was an awful throw. I don't know what I was thinking there. I need to be better. And thank you, defense, for bailing us out. Something that also didn't go well was just the run game in the first half was atrocious, and there's not really any other way to put it. I think Houston, again, great job selling out to the run. Really hard for us to set up play action in the first half, and it showed when our run game isn't dominant, we are a completely different team. We're still a team that can win games on the road in hostile environments against really, really good opponents. But are we a Super Bowl contender? Are we a team that can beat the Chiefs or the Bills or the Ravens in February? Who knows? And I think that, again, it starts with the run game and it starts with Jared Goff being more detail oriented and smarter overall with his decision making. And I don't see that being a problem, especially with Taylor Decker being out. Once we get healthy again on the offensive line, that run game's going to open up more. But again, shout out to Houston. I thought they did a really, really good job defensively in the first half. And D'Amico Ryans is a great coach, defensive-minded coach. And yeah, hats off to them. They played a great game. But again, Lions are a seasoned veteran team that finds ways to win regardless if it's not pretty. So again, a lot of things didn't go well offensively. We still found a way to win. So I don't see the offense looking that bad for the rest of the season. I think it was really good to go into Houston and kind of have a wake up call. Even in a win, you can have wake up calls and you can have identity shifters that make you look yourself in the mirror and say, "Hey, what we've been doing early on in the season, it works against inferior teams, but when we start getting into the playoffs and the bulk of our schedule down the stretch against some really, really tough opponents, especially teams we've already played in the Packers and the Vikings, they're going to have to find ways to move the ball on offense without the run game. If teams are selling out to it, gotta adapt in advance. So, and I think they will. I don't think that, I'm not saying that that's not going to happen. I have full confidence in Ben Johnson in this offensive staff to continue to put our guys in the right position. And I think that's going to be a non-factor down the stretch. I do think that this team is still the same team as it was. I mean, they just won a game with 5 interceptions. I mean, they're not going to throw 5 interceptions again this year. They might not even throw two. I don't think Jared Goff is going to be very happy with his film from this week, and he'll make some changes for sure. Defensively, what went well? I mean, everything. This defense is unbelievable. And I'm a broken record when I say bend don't break, but when you watch this defense play, is that not the first thing that comes to your mind when you see just how effective they are at forcing field goals, forcing punts? When teams get into the red zone, they don't score touchdowns. Our red zone percentage on defense, our touchdown percentage on defense in the red zone is ridiculous. Teams are teams can't score against us in the red zone, point blank. Um, some things that just went well. Specifically, Joe Mixon is one of the best running backs in all of football. I am very high on him. I've watched him play a lot this year, and he's great. He's not good. He's not all right. He's a great running back in a system that prioritizes running the ball. And he was held to 25 carries for 46 yards, a long of 1.8 yards per carry for one of the best running backs in all of football. 1.8 yards per carry. This is a crazy stat. Least amount of yards for a player with 25 plus carries since 2013. Put that into perspective. It's been 11 years since a running back had 25 carries and had less than 46 yards. That's ridiculous. I mean, especially without Aiden Hutchinson. Zadarius Smith didn't even play. This team is beaten and battered. It is so injured right now, and it's just next man up. You got special teams guys filling in at linebacker, scraping down the line, and holding Joe Mixon to no gain. I mean, it's a thing of beauty to watch. That's the only way I can really put it. The guy I was talking about, Ben Neiman, he's a special teams player. He's been a special teams player his entire career, and he came in at middle linebacker and filled gaps and just played smart ball. it's just fun to watch. It's really, really fun to watch this defense operate, which is something that I did not think I was going to say heading into this year. Um, Another thing that went well, Carlton Davis had his best game as a Lion. We knew when we signed him, he was kind of gonna be the mentor to Terrion Arnold and Ennis Rakestraw and some of those young corners and young DBs. And his play this year has embodied that for sure. He's got a ton of pass deflections, some really, really key plays, one on fourth down early on in the season, that solidified a win. I think it was against the Rams, but his ball tracking ability last night, he looked a lot quicker. He was filling run gaps very, very well. He had a couple really, really good tackles on the edge where if he doesn't make that tackle, they might take that 20, 30 yards. Um, Obviously, the interceptions are nice, two interceptions on the game. Um, his first interception was great, the first play of the second half, which I'm sure the Texans came into that second half with an entire drive scripted out. And first play, Carlton jumps a route and picks off CJ Stroud, and sets up the Lions with life again. Um, and then again, later on in the game, another end zone interception for this team. I can't even count how many we have. I think we have about 8, 9 red zone interceptions this year. Some teams don't even have 8, 9 interceptions on the year. A lot of teams don't have 8, 9 interceptions on the year. Yet the Lions have 8 of them in the end zone. And again, that's just attributes to the fact that this team is elite in red zone defense. And Aaron Glenn is an elite defensive coordinator when it comes to playing defense inside the 20-yard line. Obviously, Carlton's second interception, he kind of got beat. It was kind of a bust in coverage, but some pressure from the Lions' defensive front allowed CJ Stroud to kind of throw an arid ball. Couldn't get enough on it to hit Tank down the back of the end zone. It kind of floated on him, and Carlton, closing speed, tracks the ball perfectly. It makes a play on it, and just like that, Lions again have life. So I'm just glad that Carlton's kind of coming into his own in this defense. He is the solidified number one cornerback on this team, and teams don't like to throw at him. I mean, obviously, with Terrion Arnold being on the other side, teams are exploiting that. But yeah, Carlton Davis, he does not get the ball thrown at him a lot. So when he does, he makes plays. Um, Another thing that went well, I can't say enough good things about this guy. I talk about him every single week, but he gives me a reason to talk about him every single week, and that's Brian Branch. I think he's the best player on this defense. He might be the best player on this team, and he might be the best safety in all of football. This guy has the ability to play anywhere on the field. Maybe not at defensive tackle, but he can play linebacker. He could play edge. He can play safety. He's great in run support. The Texans ran a couple sets where there was a bunched set where there was no wide receivers on the outside. Brian Branch played like a kind of a hybrid linebacker in that set. They ran it to his side. He fit perfectly and had a tackle for loss. I mean, his his run fits are perfect. He is able to set the edge on pulling tackles almost every single time. Yeah, he sometimes gets pushed over, but nonetheless, he's setting the edge. He's forcing the running back inside to Aleem McNeil and to James Houston and Josh Pascal. And when we get Zadarius Smith, like he does the little things that might not show up in the box score, but when they're watching tape, I know he is just getting so much praise because of just how physical he is. He's 6 foot 200 pounds. He's a 6 foot 200 pound nickel, fitting the run game, fitting pulling tacklers, stunting, figuring out ways to make plays on the ball, regardless if he's the smallest player on the field. It's just so fun to watch him operate. He's so quick to the ball. He's got such a high football IQ, and just in the run game, man, he is so effective. And then another thing that went well, usually a safety as good at run fitting as Brian Branch tends to struggle in coverage. But that's just not the case. He arguably is our best cover player, regardless of position. I mean, two massive pass deflections in the second half, two balls that CJ Stroud, it looks open at the time. He throws it, and Brian Branch just flies out of nowhere to make the breakup. I mean, he gets turnovers, he forces punts, he's electric on third down, he figures out ways to get them behind schedule on run plays. They run the ball first down thinking they might get 3-4 yards, stay ahead of schedule. Nope, Brian Branch. Tackle for loss. It's 2nd and 11. I mean, this guy he's got it. He has the ability to be the best safety in the league for years to come. I said a Troy Polamalu comparison earlier on in the year, and I thought I was being a little overzealous with that. But watching him play the run and the pass, he very well could be the next Troy Polamalu or Ed Reed or Brian Dawkins or one of these safeties that hits harder than linebackers, but can also be elite in pass coverage. I mean, he led the team with 10 tackles. 6 foot, 200-pound nickel. 10 tackles. 6 solo. Just unreal stuff from Brian Branch. Love watching him play. If you're an avid Lions fan and you watch these games, find number 32 and just watch him. Just watch him fly around. It's so fun to watch him operate. It's just, I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen a safety, especially on the Lions, who is as effective in run support and in coverage. It's just awesome. I mean, the glazing is crazy. I know I talk about him so much. I have his jersey. I mean, I might be a little biased because he's my favorite player on the team, but man, he's just awesome. So if you haven't got the chance to really take a look at what he's doing on the defensive side of the ball, go back and watch the Texans game. Go back and watch any game this season, and you can just see how effective he is. Another thing that went well, I'll move on. James Houston, his motor was infectious. Again, we know he has the ability to be a difference maker, and he was. He had a sack, just one sack, but multiple pressures. Multiple pressures, forcing errant throws, being a problem. And that's his nickname, is the problem. And he's hard to prepare for an offensive line, and that was evident again last night. Another guy on the defensive line that was awesome, Aleem the Dream McNeil, man. We extended him a couple of weeks ago for very good reason. I mean, he's amazing in run support. He's been amazing in run support, but you can see he's slimmed down, he's quicker, he's more agile. His pass rushing ability is from the interior is elite. I mean, he's good for a sack every game. He's good for multiple pressures every game. He makes the offensive line uncomfortable because it's hard to block pass rushing defensive line or defensive tackles. It's very hard to prepare for a guy that can find his way to the quarterback through the middle of the offensive line. Watching Aleem McNeil, Zadarius Smith, and Aiden Hutchinson next year is going to feed families. That's going to be, I feel bad for Caleb Williams and JJ McCarthy and Jordan Love. I really do, because this defensive front is going to cause so many problems. Another thing that went well, Houston ran 31 total second half plays on offense. 31. That's insane. I mean, for an offense, too, that is as potent as Houston is, and they value time of possession and value being on the field, they ran 31 plays, and the defense just kept getting off the field when it needed. Second half, their drives they went like this. Second half, the Texans' drives played out. Interception, first drive. Punt, another interception. Punt, 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 missed field goal. Game over, Lions win. Obviously, the offense picked it up in the second half, but this defense was the catalyst, for sure. 31 plays, time of possession was completely flipped towards the Lions, and you're not going to win ball games when you continue to give Jared Goff in this offense opportunity, and that's what Aaron Glenn and the rest of the defensive staff did. It was just an all-around effort, a lot of injuries, didn't matter. I'll throw Jake Bates into the defensive side of the ball, defense slash special teams, whatever. Jake Bates is so valuable. It's unreal. Like last year, we do not trust Michael Badgley to hit two 50-plus yard field goals when we're down when we're down three. We just don't. We probably go for it on fourth down, both of those plays. But we trust Jake Bates' leg and his accuracy, and he drills a 52-yarder and a 58-yarder to walk it off in the Lions win. I mean, he's so accurate. He, even though they were really close, they were very, very close field goals, they didn't move off of his foot. They went completely straight and they snuck in. And it doesn't matter if you send it right down the middle or if it hits the upright and goes in. A field goal is a field goal, and Jake Bates is really, really good at making them. He hasn't missed one on the year. He still has yet to miss a field goal. He missed one extra point earlier on, but he's yet to miss a field goal, and he's it's just good to see his story, where he came from last year. He was a brick salesman, and now he's found a home in Detroit as one of the most valuable kickers in the league. Um, so good stuff from Jake Bates. Love to see it in his hometown of Houston as well. He's from there, born and raised, and he came out and won the game. Just awesome stuff. What did not go well? There wasn't a ton. Terrion Arnold, he really struggled. Got beat inside on third down. One of the plays had another defensive pass interference. Could have gotten called for defensive pass interference late in the game. It was kind of a bang bang call, hard to see for the ref. They didn't call it. Good pass deflection, but man, you can just see he's just a little bit slow. He's a little bit behind the wide receiver every single play, and I think that will come with age and experience. It's college football compared to the NFL is a completely different game. I mean, Terrion was dominant in college. Quarterbacks wouldn't even throw his way, and now offenses are exploiting that, and they're going to him all the time. So he seems to be the only weak link on the team, which that's fine. You're gonna have some weak links here and there, but I haven't seen a ton of improvement from him this so far this year, and that's just a little bit concerning. But hopefully he can start to gain some confidence. It would be nice if he could jump a route and get a pick, or find a way to make a really, really big play down the stretch of a game like he did last night. But I don't want to pile too much on him. I'm sure he's working his butt off to improve, and we'll just have to see if he continues to be a part of this defense for years to come. Anzalone and man-to-man is really tough to watch. Again, injuries. This is where you really miss Derek Barnes and Malcolm Rodriguez, who are both very good in pass coverage, especially Derek Barnes. Anzalone is not a cover linebacker. He is a run-stop linebacker and blitzes occasionally. And he's a leader, but having him one-on-one versus tight ends or versus guys coming across the middle on crossing routes is not a recipe for success for this defense. And we saw that last night. But again, Anzalone is a great player and he's a leader and he does all the little things correctly. But again, it's tough. It's tough to play man-to-man as a run-first linebacker. And I think that maybe Aaron Glenn needs to put him in better situations, maybe run a little bit more zone in third down situations. But again, bend don't break defense. This defense does what it needs to get the job done. And that's what they did last night. So can't pile too much on these guys, but just some things that I noticed and some things that I'm sure other teams are going to see on film and try and exploit. But other than that, man, I mean, this defense won us the game. And plain and simple, the defense won that football game. Aaron Glenn, even with a plethora of injuries, has been just dialed so far this year. I love what he's doing. I love the fact that this defense doesn't have a bunch of studs or a bunch of really highly paid players like the San Francisco 49ers and these other teams that just have these high payrolls on defense. We don't have that, but we're still just as effective. So Aaron Glenn doing a great job working with what he has. allowing guys to fill in, allowing guys like Ben Neiman to come off of special teams unit and play meaningful snaps in a Sunday night game on national television and making plays. So, love you, Aaron Glenn. Thank you for what you're doing. You won us that game yesterday. Hats off. Hats off to the entire team. I mean, the offense was obviously spectacular in the second half, but that defense, man, something special. Yeah, I mean, next week Lions take on the Jaguars, and the Jaguars look horrible. They look like one of the worst teams in the NFL. This is a trap game, no doubt. Gotta Can't take them lightly. It's still an NFL team, and they're gonna have a chip on their shoulder. It's a chance for them to have a huge upset, shake up things in the NFC, and you got to be prepared. But you get Jacksonville this week, you get the Colts the week after, and then Thanksgiving you get the Bears. We have 8 wins right now. 11 wins gets you into the playoffs. So, rattle off 3 wins, give yourself a little bit of room for error potentially, and you're sitting pretty heading into December. But again, take it game by game. Let's go get win number 9 first before we start looking on to the future. And let's go dominate the Jaguars. They're a team that we should be able to beat by multiple scores, and we should be able to run up the score on them and open up the playbook a little bit, let Jared Goff kind of get back into his groove, and we should be able to. It should be a fun game. It should be a fun game for both sides of the ball against a pretty putrid football team. And last thing I wanted to highlight, I just wanted to touch on it for 2 seconds because I still am Motor City connected. This is not just a Lions podcast. Cade Cunningham, 3 straight triple doubles last week. The Pistons look competent, and it starts with and ends with Cade. He's been great. He's been rebounding the ball very well, which is very encouraging because last year I don't think he wanted to rebound as much because he has had some troubles with knee and shin injuries, but you can see he's much more explosive this year, getting to the glass, and that's huge. That's huge, especially Jalen Duren has been out for the past couple of games with an ankle injury, so it's going to be rebounding by committee, and Cade's done a good job picking up that slack. The Pistons, they look like a team. They're not going to win 50 games this year, like I said in last episode, but they're going to be competitive in every single game they play. The defense is actually alive, and the defense actually looks like they know how to switch on off-ball screens. They know how to switch on pick and roll. They know how to box out, and they know how to close out on shooters. It's night and day from last year, and it's just fun to see. It's just nice to win some. Cade's averaging 23 points, 7 rebounds, 8 assists. Scoring output hasn't been quite as effective as we might have thought, but it's because he's actually a playmaker in this offense. I mean, JB Bickerstaff had Darius Garland last year in Cleveland, and Darius Garland could have been a 28 point per game scorer, but he's so effective at throwing lobs and finding open guys that he started to become more of a hybrid point guard, and I think that's going to be huge for Cade Cunningham because he is 6'7", 6'8". He's got the Ben Simmons archetype, but he can actually shoot the ball and get to the basket, and he's not afraid to score. I think that he's going to be one of the best players in this league for a long time to come, and it's kind of starting to come to fruition this year. I think this is his kind of breakout year where he shows everybody what he can do. He's not just a scorer. He's not just a guy that can get to the basket and make layups, but rather a playmaking, slashing, can play off ball with Jaden Ivey, and it's fun to see him kind of come into his own. It's going to be a long season, is what I have written down, but at least they're fun to watch and they have an identity and they have a direction that they're going to go instead of just, yeah, well, hopefully the draft will work out for us. That's not a strategy at all. Hope is not a strategy. There has to be things proactively being done throughout the offseason and throughout the year that's going to lead into, you know what, maybe we did fall to the 5th pick, but who cares? Because whoever we get at number 5 is still going to be a piece on this team and can still help win games. Asar Thompson is coming back. He's going to give another boost defensively to this team. He's a very, very athletic wing, not a great shooter or scorer, but uh, again, extremely athletic. We haven't seen him play this year, so maybe he has worked on his shot in the offseason. I hope he has. Um, but I'm excited to kind of see him get back out on the court. I know he had some blood clotting issues, but I think he's now cleared and should be ready to go in the next couple games. Yeah, the Pistons, but the Pistons take on the Heat this week. A Bucks team that is a shell of their former selves. Doc Rivers is a terrible coach. Giannis wants out. That team's falling apart. And then the Raptors and the Wizards this week. So very winnable games after a brutal schedule to start the year. A 2-2 week is a win. If you can get a win against the Heat and the Wizards, and you might fall to the Bucks and Raptors, that's a win. If you go 500 in a week and you get some wins, you stack together some wins, that is just, it's going to pay dividends in the future and going to give these guys some confidence that they can actually compete with anybody in this league. That's all I have for this week. Trap game against the Jags, so can't take them lightly. But let's go get our 8th win in a row, and hopefully the Pistons continue to look much better than they did a season ago. Things are looking up for Detroit. Lions are 8-1, and it's fun. This is fun, man. It's fun to watch. It's fun to be a part of. This has been Motor City Connected with Kyle Garrison. Thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.